when I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Donnie and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
my head up.
I'm South Carolina, so I just
gotta be you.
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Mars?
Oh, my heart,
Happy 20th anniversary.
my heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? Donnie.
Gotta be me and gotta be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself. There's
The doctor lived next door to the janitor to the reverend and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Donnie, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all the more.
letting His glory shine through. Gotta be you, gotta be me, gotta be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. We have a very special guest today. I'm really, really proud. Finally, I get to talk to somebody in the profession. In her role as Black Media Initiative Director for the Center for Community Media at the Newmark J School, Cheryl Thompson-Morton works to support Black media outlets through training, research, convenings, and connecting them to financial resources. Previously, she was program director for the Lenfest Institute for Journalism in Philadelphia, where she created, launched, and executed several initiatives to increase equity in news media. These include the Lenfest Next Generation Fund, the Community Listening and Engagement Fund, and the Philadelphia News Ecosystem Collaboration Grant Program. Try saying that 3 times backwards. Good morning. How are you, Miss Cheryl Thompson-Morton?
Good morning. I'm good. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.
I love your last name, by the way. I just wanted to tell you. Did I ever tell you the story?
About your family? About
Yeah,
your
my
middle name?
grandma's, my father's mother, her brother paid my dad $50 to give me a Morton middle name.
That's
Like
funny.
he brought me back into the family. I don't know.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that was me too. My family wanted to make sure both sides had their name in. So
I got you. Yeah. That's what I realized later. It was like, oh, it was like that.
yeah. It's not a married name. I didn't change my name when I got married. So.
So you're originally from Philadelphia?
I'm from the Philly area, raised in South Jersey. So Philly is
Okay.
my city.
Have you ever been to Clementon Park?
I have. Yes, I have.
I've been to Clementon Park. That's South Jersey, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, Clemson Park. I've spent many childhood days there for sure.
In the wintertime, it is so cold. It's cold for pure meanness. I've never been
there in
that
the
cold
winter.
before.
Yeah, I've never been in the winter. I've only gone in the summer to Clemson Park.
Lord,
But
I was just crying for no reason. It was like, why are you crying? It's cold.
I hear you.
So originally, you're Drexel grad alumni?
I am. Yeah, graduated from there. So yeah, went to school in Drexel. Always been in this area here, South Jersey, Philly. That's kind of my home base.
And there's a famous Black newspaper there, right?
There is the Philadelphia Tribune. It's funny in Black media, people argue about like different terminology of who's the oldest continuously running, etc. But they have the claim of the longest continuously running Black newspaper in the United States. Just an amazing legacy there, and that was my initial kind of learning about Black media, was learning from people like Mr. Bogle and Sarah Lomax Reese, who runs Word Radio in Philly. So yeah, real strong history of Black media in Philly, which is a very Black city, as many people know.
So Mr. Bogle, he's like in his 80s.
Yes, well into his 80s, and still kicking butt over
You've
there.
met him?
I've met Mr. Bogle several times, both in my old job, and my job now. I've talked to him a few times. So yeah, still leading the charge there every day.
What did you get from him? I mean, in terms of, the Tribune, its history, its legacy, the significance to Black media.
I think Mr. Bogle's story, and I don't want to butcher it because I don't know that I have all the intricacies exactly right, but Mr. Bogle started working at the Tribune as a teenager, I believe, delivering newspapers, and worked his way from that to the majority owner there. And when you speak to Mr. Bowl, he has just such a passion for telling the stories of our community. He has such a love for our community. And he is always, in any room he's in, going to speak truth to power about the issues of racism in this country, the ways that it shows up, and the importance of Black media in bringing those issues to light and why Black media needs support. So I've been in many conversations with him where he will call out, philanthropy, advertisers, all types of people who are not providing equitable access to funding, for Black media. And also, I've been in many rooms where he will bring up why Black media is so important, both historically and presently. So yeah, I think he is just a beacon in the industry, really, of just what is possible in his journey. He's in the later parts of his journey, but it's an example that many of us can look at and follow.
So you set yourself up for this next question. What does Black media mean to you?
Ooh, so yeah, this is a good question. One of the first questions I set out to answer when I started in this role was, what does Black media mean, right? Because you have everything from like BET to something like the Tribune. You have, digital startups on like YouTube or Twitter, Instagram. What does it mean? And so I actually talked
digital Starbucks
startups.
Oh, okay. I was like, I never heard of that.
No, me neither.
Digital startups, yes.
But some of so what I did was actually talk to Black media folks about like, what do you think it means? And so the definition that I work within is that Black media is about ownership. Who is owning the company, who benefits from the company doing well, who is the final decision maker in that room on what gets covered, and that they have a lens focused on Black issues in the Black community. Now, in the Black Media Initiative, we also have organizations who are Black owned, or a Black nonprofit founded and led in the majority by Black people, but that serve broader audiences. And we did decide to include them because we should be able to own mainstream outlets too, right? Like our ownership shouldn't just be limited to serving the Black audience, although that is a critical audience.
Now, see, I thought you were going to say, as you were describing Black media, I thought you were heading towards talking about Black news media versus, say, a BET.
Yeah, and we are, because we work at a journalism institution. We have kind of some standards that go beyond just the ownership piece. You need to be producing original journalism in some capacity. So we don't include people who are aggregators. We're not including like content creators around just outfit of the days or, general kind of like content for entertainment, but people who are producing original content about a subject, following journalistic principles of, the way that we do our work, vetting sources, etc. And we also look for a certain level of activity. So whether you're a weekly publication or a monthly publication, a quarterly, we're looking to make sure that you are, producing original content at a cadence.
I love it. I love it. I love the integrity, so we don't get confused. You made me think of Cedar. Do you remember Cedar?
No.
Cedar, yeah, yes, you do. Cedar was the caricature, the cartoon on BET. The little ghetto hoochie mama cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I could have just reached through the television screen like, no. See, Professor Ron Nichols, he was our media professor here in Baltimore at Coppin State, HBCU. And the very first class, Cheryl, he had us watch the film, The Birth of a Nation, which might have been better named The Death of a Nation, but The Birth of a Nation. He wanted us to see D.W. Griffith's intention, and he wanted us to understand as Black journalists, Black media people, what we were up against.
Right.
That's it. We watched that film, and so what he also said the first day of class, he said, you will never view media again the same way.
That's right.
Did that happen to you as the more you got involved?
Yes. Before coming into Black media, I worked very heavily in mainstream media, in trying to do diversity efforts in mainstream media. And there are a lot of limitations in that space. And there are a lot of ways where you're like, you can't look at media the same way once you understand more of how the sausage is made. And also how, despite DEI efforts, really bad, egregious errors happen. The place I used to work at owned the Philadelphia Inquirer, and there were a lot of DEI efforts, and they had a really horrible headline that came out in 2020, basically in the midst of all of this work: Black Lives Matter, buildings matter too. And it was, the article itself was aiming to be a critique of destroying buildings and like looking at the civil rights era, how when those buildings were destroyed, that they were never rebuilt. And so, they were trying to make the argument that it actually further disenfranchises communities to destroy buildings. And that headline wasn't on the digital, it just was in the print because, there wasn't enough space, blah, 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 all these things. But that was after years of trying to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion. They are continuing to try to do work to improve after that kind of, lightning rod moment. But I began to realize, and this is just my opinion, other people have different ones. I think there's important work to be done in making mainstream newsrooms serve us better and not do harm, is what I should actually say, not actively harm our communities. But really, a lot of the work, what I realized that I was trying to do in mainstream media actually was already happening in media run by people from the community. And what really is needed is an increase in investment in the newsrooms that are doing the work right and initially, as opposed to trying to get the newsrooms that have already taken the resources to do right by us. And so yeah, I agree with you. I think I have come to that conclusion as well. Before this, I was not a journalist before coming into this space. And so learning
But
more.
now you are. Well, you're at least a Black media executive.
Right. I now know a lot more. And so I came in very green, but now, like you said, I can't look at media the same way. I'm looking at headlines and pictures and like, well, why did they make that choice? All of it. It's hard to go back for sure.
I did an editorial recently on your homeboy,
Who my homeboy?
Kevin Hart.
Oh, Philly.
They were,
Okay.
they were pumping commercials here in Maryland with him pushing sports betting.
Ah,
It was him. It was it was Jamie Foxx and I want to say Kevin Garnett.
yeah, I've seen those. Yep.
And here in Maryland, 30% Black state. The lottery, Maryland State Lottery, has been online since 1973
Wow.
with the promise of money for education. Most recently, somewhere between 06 and 14, they pushed on us table gambling and sports betting. And so those things just came into fruition recently. And what I'm getting to is $15 billion has come through the Maryland State Lottery with the initial promise of money for education. Yet we have classrooms here in Baltimore City with icicles in the winter, and the classrooms are too hot in the warmer months.
Mm.
So as I'm seeing the Kevin Hart commercials, pushing this sports betting, and I'm like, dog, that's the last thing we need you to promote in our community.
Yeah.
We don't have no problem gambling. It's like we don't have no problem partying. We need some equity.
Yeah.
We don't need encouragement with that. And besides, aren't you rich? So go find some other way don't let them use you to pimp your community. They eventually went away, and I was glad, but he was my favorite comedian up until that point. But it's just like an athlete. It's not just what you do on the field. It's how you carry it out off the field.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think, this is the challenge with kind of well, I guess this goes back to why we focus on ownership in Black media, because it's easy to have a Black face on the screen, right? To talk to the community, but if it's not informed at the top by people who actually are looking out for the best interests, now we know all skin folk ain't kinfolk, so that doesn't necessarily mean it either. But oftentimes these things that we see that are not helpful to the image of our community and pushing our community forward are coming from companies owned by folks that are not a part of the community. And we know we don't have a lot of opportunities to own companies that are bringing in these amounts of revenues, and figure out, and then make choices for ourselves about how we're going to invest in our community, as opposed to having some company have some philanthropy and they decide, oh, we're going to support you in this way or that way. So that's why ownership matters, and ownership in media matters as well. And so that's why that's our focus in Black media for sure.
when you see a Roland Martin, and to my understanding, he now produces his own stuff, his own
Yep.
content. Now we've been doing that from the beginning, but tell me what happens when a notable person like a Roland Martin starts doing for self as opposed to, I mean, he's tried these other venues, other names come to mind. Tavis Smiley,
Yep.
who got shot down, in the media and the Obama thing and blah, blah, blah. But what happens when one of us does something in the realm of self-determination?
I think what Roland is doing, what other people are doing, like Tavis Smiley, others, I think this is a really positive development. And I know there are people like you and others who have been, toiling in this space for much longer and, laying the groundwork of how it can work. But one of the benefits, there are a lot of drawbacks to social media and all of that, but one of the benefits is that it lowers the barrier to distribution that before now, in order to have a show like this, you needed to get on a channel, right? In order to have a newspaper, you needed to get money for the printing press. You had to have a list of people to give it out to. You had to get your distribution. Now, I can set up a website, I can share it on social media, and if I'm producing quality content and get it in front of the right people, I can build an audience and build power with much without all of the gatekeepers, right? And that's the power that we have. The challenge that can be with that is that we often in the social channels don't have scale. The scale of, ABC or Fox or all of these people. So when we're trying to compete for advertising dollars or other types of dollars, it becomes difficult. What big name people like Roland Martin do is they bring attention to this space and this work that is happening by coming in, by bringing audience and scale. And what Roland is doing, which I think is very interesting and important, is he's bringing to light the racist practices of advertising in media and showing the difficulty that he has as someone who does have a lot of scale in getting advertising dollars. And his fight in that space, what I'm hopeful will happen is that it will trickle down not just to Roland Martin or Byron Allen, who's doing similar lawsuits, but that it will trickle down to more of the people who are taking advantage of this way of distributing content and getting stuff to our community. So that's my I think it's a benefit to have people like Roland and other folks in the space who are calling out the problems and the challenges, for sure.
Cheryl, I'm smiling because you're going to be in my next book, right?
That's funny. I'd love to.
You're going to be in my next book, lady. What you're saying is just music to my ears. What comes to mind is a discussion we've had previously about the generations.
Mm.
And as I hear you talk about Mr. Bogle from the Tribune and Roland, who's certainly iconic today, what's coming? What's the future? Who is Roland? Who's the new Roland, the new Donnie, the new Cheryl? Who's gonna grab the mantle? And the fact that quite possibly Black newspapers are falling way to the back, and this here is the new network.
That's right.
Your
yeah. It's interesting. I don't claim to be a fortune teller and be able to tell what the future holds.
But you study this.
I have some ideas of where it could go.
No, you have the map. You have the map of what, 400 Black media outlets?
We do.
Nobody. Who else has that, Cheryl?
Nobody that I know of, but that's knowing what's today. In terms of, I think, what's coming, um, this Generation Z, that is kind of coming to the fore, y'all know they love to call stuff out. And so and they are passionate about a lot of topics around equity. And like when we look at young Black people in the country, I don't think the spirit of the Black press, the kind of we wish to plead our own cause, too too long others have spoken for us, that Cornish and Russworm said in 1827, that spirit will, I think, always be with Black people. As long as there is discrepancy in outcomes for Black people, there is always going to be that spirit of people like, we need to tell the stories of our people. We need to hold power to account, and we're going to do that forever. What is going to change is the ways, the mediums in which we do that. And so, when Cornish and Russworm started the Freedom's Journal in 1827, the new technology of that period was the newspaper. It was the printing press. We now live in a time where new technology is coming out every few months, right? Like in the past few months, AI and Chat GPT have taken over. A year ago, we weren't talking about that at all. And that's the way that technology is evolving. So I think where we're going, it's going to be less major brands and much more kind of a decentralized group of creators who are creating content online via social media and things like that, who are, sharing content and building audiences that way. I also think that we already have the leaders who are going to come and take the mantle and continue the work. And, we'll see how that continues to evolve. People like Nehemiah Frank of the Black Wall Street Times out in Tulsa, who are doing amazing work, have going to the White House like you, Donnie, and doing the press stuff, all of that. There's a guy in Kansas City, the Kansas City Defender, Ryan Sorrell, who has broken so many stories of racism at the local schools, broke the story about girls going missing in Kansas City and how the police were like, no, that's a false story. And then the girl escaped. They brought that story and were talking about girls going missing before the cops actually admitted that was happening. So there's a lot of people doing really wonderful work, reaching these audiences. So, I think that spirit of the Black press, I don't see it going anywhere. I don't think we have to worry about that. It's just going to be new tools that we use, which is exciting.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So one of the tools, and we have Michael Haney commenting, he does a show called 60 Minutes in Black America. One of the tools, and I don't want time to get away from us before I ask, is organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So, many of us in the industry, of course, know about NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists. We also know about NNPA, National Newspaper Publishers Association. So with all of these new, I'm trying to couch it correctly. With these new digital outlets and others, will, particularly NNPA, will that suffice? Or is it time, or have others come into the fold? Because over the past, 200 years, 1827 going on 200 years, 196 years. Well, actually it came about in 1940.
Right.
But of course the newspapers started 1827. But from 1940 forward, the black newspapers, they formed NNPA. Is that still, are they still king of the hill, queen of the hill?
I think NNPA serves an important role, but as y'all know, um, black black people, we love to get together and organize and figure it out, and part of that is out of necessity, right? That we realize we can't fight the battles that we have to fight alone. It's easier to fight when you have a group of people who are behind you, beside you, and in this case, also have audience numbers that you can pull together to go after resources. That's something NMPA has done very effectively, and we're seeing other groups form for these kind of digital startups or the newer outlets that are coming up in this period. So you have a group called BOMISI, which is the Black-Owned Equity and Sustainability Institute. They are a group that is bringing together, I think they have nearly 100 Black media outlets. Some are part of NMPA as well. But these they're coming together to try to get advertising dollars with their joint scale. They also are doing different accelerators. They have one that's going on right now where they got some money from General Motors to do a digital advertising accelerator, give each of the newsrooms $25,000 who are in the cohort. They host a Black-owned media weekend around Juneteenth in Tulsa where, they fly Black media people out there, all expense paid, and do events, and trainings and all of that. So there's that group. Then there are a lot of regional groups as well that have popped up. So we have in Miami, the Black-Owned Media Alliance, or South Florida, I should say. You have in Ohio, the Ohio Black Media Collective. You have California Black Media. There are others that I am missing that aren't coming to my mind, but there are a lot of ways that people are organizing. And I think this is important because it's with scale that we're able to compete, and that comes by working together. It doesn't come by competing for each other and feeling like if I win, you have to lose. And
there's strength in numbers.
There's strength in numbers. And also, I think people being a part of multiple groups, because there are different ways that you may be able to come together to get money or to create better stories for the community. All of these things come by, working in community. So I think, that's something that's going to continue to happen for sure.
Could you say the name again for us?
The Black-Owned Equity Media. Black-Owned Media Equity and Sustainability Institute. BOMISI is what they call the acronym.
You got to work on those names there. Huh?
Yeah, it's a long one. It is a long one.
You might start with the word Black media, then maybe.
Yeah, so it's a long one, but they're doing incredible work. For sure.
Okay, here's Michael Haney. And I forgot to tell you that Michael Haney is a big supporter of this network here. That's As amazing. A matter of fact, because of Mr. Haney, we get to stream longer and stronger. We have hosts from around the country. This whole thing started as a result of COVID because we couldn't cover news like normal. I mean, Be More News, we were limited. We were in the house, Right. COVID was God's way, I heard a young man say, of sending everybody to their room.
Yeah.
While we were in our room, I saw some sisters I know. It's a group here in Maryland called Sisters for Sisters Network Incorporated. Mm-hmm. And they use StreamYard. I've been wanting to know how to stream and found this platform thanks to Peggy Mars. And we've been streaming ever since. And Mr. Michael Haney has been a big part of making this happen. And so what I'm also hearing you say is that if there is no media group, then create one or be a
Yeah.
part of creating one. Work together, strategic partnerships. A young man told me when I first went into business, he said, one hyena can't take down the lion, or one lion can't take down the elephant. He said, but if you work in a pack,
Yeah.
and not to pick on anybody in the animal kingdom, but together, if we work together, we can, just like NNPA, the first 8, the top 8 publishers of Black newspapers, what was it? The Defender, Amsterdam, the Afro, Tribune, 4 others or so. They came together so they could get those big advertisers. They couldn't get it alone.
Exactly.
Now,
Absolutely.
invariably, what happens in groups is somebody wants to be in charge, or, I look at one of our Black civil rights groups, and the executive director's been there like 30 years. It's like, dude, when you gonna sit your hind parts down, pass the ball? You've been there for you have great grandchildren.
Yeah.
Because that's not very encouraging to me, and I know it's not. I'm 57. I'm like, damn, are you going to die in office? But you're even younger, and it's like, before you get a chance, I'm still raising my hand. Hey, can I? At least my generation. And so it's like, when do we learn how to let it go?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, a lot of groups are trying to figure out what is the intergenerational approach, because you don't want to leave the older people by the wayside.
They can't hold on for forever.
I agree. I do agree with that, and I think
I have to trust you.
Yeah,
I have to trust you.
Right.
I mean, you are conscientious. You understand the numbers as well as anybody, if from a business perspective, can. You understand the history, the legacy. You've met with Mr. Bogle. You know what, Cheryl? Bump all of that. We're going to name you the new head of NNPA XYZ. No, not NNPA. We're going to create our own NNPA XYZ, and you the president. And I, Donnie Glover, affirm this notion.
That is so funny. Yeah, I mean, I think all of the groups provide immense value. And so, and I know NNPA is trying to, they have like a millennial task force. They're trying to, add things to it. But I think there is, there's benefit in learning from what everyone can bring to the table. And I agree that there are times when fresh leadership is helpful, to help, make sure that we're going to be around for the next 200 years.
You can't be a leader if you got an AOL email address. I'm sorry. That worked up until 5 years ago, but if you still got your Hotmail email address, boo-boo, you might want to learn about Google. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you.
Okay, so I want to make sure we get something positive in there, because if I'm going to be quick to criticize, then I have to be quick to celebrate.
Absolutely.
There is a woman named Cheryl Smith, who runs Texas Metro News. What do you know about Cheryl? Is she the bomb or what?
Cheryl Smith is amazing. And, similarly to what I said about Mr. Bogle, she is one of those people who advocates for Black people and Black media wherever she goes. Cheryl Smith has, before leading, she has 3 publications in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but before leading those publications, she worked in Black media. She was someone who worked in the space. And one of the things that she saw was how Black people looked at her as less of a journalist because she worked in Black media. And she felt like, people didn't highlight or didn't see the wonderful work that she was doing because, as Cheryl Smith will often say, they think that white man's ice is colder, right? Our ice is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, just like theirs is. And so, after building a long career in radio and in print media and Black media spaces, she ventured out on her own. She's on the NNPA board. She has been on the NABJ board. She's in the NABJ Hall of Fame. And I should say that's the National Association of Black Journalists, in case I didn't say that. And so she is just a powerhouse of a woman, so wonderful and warm. And she really advocates both for Black media representation, Black media excellence, and being seen as excellent. And she advocates for bringing in new voices, both at NABJ and NNPA. So she's just a really wonderful person in the space, really just a star and a beacon for sure.
You know what I like about her, Cheryl?
Hmm.
I mean, I call you Cheryl.
No, we're both Cheryl. That's funny. We're like, hey, Cheryl.
I had to go and check myself. That she answers the phone like you do.
Yep.
And she understands the importance of passing the ball to you, to me.
Yes.
And a lot of the older cats don't.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's my time to shine, and I can't share the spotlight with anyone else. Or at least that's what their spirit is crying out.
Yeah.
Pass the ball.
I agree. And I think, I will say I've heard even from several younger Black publishers who started outfits that have been very successful. They started by going to the Black newspaper in their community and was like, hey, I have this idea of how we can take it to the next level. Like, I want to come work with you and bring this idea to fruition. And we're turned away. And that's why they
go ahead, boy.
Now, there are other publishers who are like, oh, okay, come on, bring them ideas, right? And there are some of those folks too. So I think there's a mix, but I agree we've seen several publications in Black media that exist because they weren't able to get, support from the kind of legacy Black media outlet in the space. So yeah, I agree with you on that point for sure.
Okay, so we're winding down. Any terms that you want us Black people to understand? Terms, terminology, vocabulary. Like I never knew of the term digital native. I now realize that Be More News is a digital native. We were born on the web.
Yes, that's true. It's almost hard for me to think about what are things people need to know because it's the language of my life. I think one of the things that I think can be helpful, and one of the things we don't do enough of, I think, folks who work in journalism, is explaining what differentiates journalism from other types of content creation. And I say that because before I came into journalism, I didn't understand what the distinction was either. So there are several different types of journalism or media, right? There's some where there's opinion injected, like an editorial piece, versus something that is reported, which is just giving you the facts. There is analysis, which is giving you the facts, but then providing some context.
Then there's those the editorial advertisers,
sponsored content, which is content that maybe the newsroom created, but it's made for an advertiser. So it's you should check up top. They have to disclose that if they're an ethical organization. But if something seems like, oh, this place is so wonderful and they have this product, and that's usually sponsored content that people are getting advertising money for. And I think this is important that we understand the basics of what journalism is and the different types of ways it comes to us, because the Black community is being specifically targeted by disinformation. The Black community is being, and also there's a lot of content creation happening in Black media that is not journalistically informed. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but we have to understand the limitations of people who are like, oh, I heard this happen, versus a journalist saying, no, sources have told me, which means that they have talked to someone, they have verified that that person knows this information, even if they can't share the person who told them that. There's a distinction. And when we don't know that distinction, we take certain information that's a rumor and treat it the same way as if it was a source in a journalistic type of article. So those things are important. And that's what I want Black communities to know in terms of like that, because I think it's important when we're being targeted by disinformation.
Sure, we just got some breaking news that Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks launches her campaign for U.S. Senate. Well, she just had to, because 4 or 5 days ago, this white guy named David Trone, he's a congressman here, millionaire, wrote himself a $15 million check in his last campaign. He came out over the weekend, like Thursday, Friday. So, and we've been pushing this story over the weekend, and particularly yesterday on the radio, on the news, like, hey, if there's, because we have our new Black governor, if you're going to have a Black county, a Black U.S. senator, chop, chop, boo-boo.
Exactly.
Stop playing.
Yeah, no doubt.
And he got money.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Sorry for that. Just update you.
No,
So
I love it.
what can people do? Thank you, Michael. What can people do? What can people do? What can other outlets do? Should they call you? I mean, because when I found you, and big ups to Morgan State University and this graduate program I'm in, it forced me to find you. I mean, I'm so glad I found you. I feel like, tell us about CUNY. Do you like City University in New York?
I do. You know, CUNY's a behemoth of an organization. Our school, the journalism school, is small, like 70 staff, 100, a little over 100 students at any one time. But CUNY, I think, has over 250,000 students at any one time. So it's massive. And what CUNY does really well in New York is that it takes people from the working class to the middle class. So our student population at CUNY is overwhelmingly immigrant, people of color, working class people in New York City. And it really can transform the trajectory of their reality. And so that's the backdrop of which our center sits within, of trying to improve outcomes for media owned by people of color. In my case, focused on Black media. I'd love if you reach out, let me know. Like, as I always tell people, the map and directory is who we know, right? It's the people we know.
We didn't even mention that, the mapping.
Yeah. So the mapping project, this is something we do across all of our initiatives. So we have one for Latino media, one for Asian media will come out this fall, where we do research on the country and try to find all the Black media outlets we can. We put them on a map and in a directory of their information. So it helps to show where we are on the map, but it also shows what mediums are we leaning into, how often are we publishing. So it's really a useful tool. And it also, you can find contact information if you want to connect with a publisher in another place. So yeah, but the limit of that is I'm not in every community, right? I don't know everything that's going on. So I always tell people that map and directory is limited by what I know and what we know at this given time. When I came here, that directory was maybe around 350 outlets. So we've added like nearly 100 outlets since I've been here, just because I'm continually meeting people like Donnie, like others, and like, oh, that's an outlet we didn't know exists. That needs to get added to the list. So yeah,
some people get, I hate the term blackball, but black people can blackball black media outlets.
That's the truth. That's true. And you know,
But if the kid coming on the court and he's shooting like Steph Curry, how you not gonna give him his props or her
that's true.
props?
That's true. You know, and for us, we are agnostic in that way. If you're producing original journalism, and producing at a cadence, and you're black owned or black, you know, a black nonprofit, then you're in the directory, because it's not up to us to make a value judgment outside of those criteria on whether you should be included or not. You are a part of black media.
I
So
got to hit you with this, Cheryl. Other countries, are other countries involved? Is Africa involved, or how global can we go?
So currently it's a US based initiative, but we our trainings and stuff are open internationally. So we've had people from the UK, Africa, Canada, come to some of those trainings. The directory is limited currently. That may change eventually, but right now the charge for the center I'm a part of is a US based initiative. So that's where we are for now.
Okay, well, I wanted to say one last thing, and I'm not getting fresh. I know you're a married woman, but we love your hair.
Oh, thank you.
And I say that because in our world, we don't always get to enjoy our natural selves.
That's
and
true.
It's so important to me as a father of a daughter, granddaughter, one on the way. I want our women to feel comfortable being themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is something my husband definitely, you know, talked about with me. And, you know, there's been some challenges along the way professionally, but it's a choice I definitely don't regret.
Thank you. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Donnie, for the work that you're doing. Thank you for everyone in Black media who's doing this work. It's not easy work. So anyone who's watching, please give all the people working in Black media their flowers if you support their work, because the stuff that they're dealing with behind the scenes to get this content to you, it's a lot. And they need all the support that they deserve and that they can get. So make sure y'all are supporting Black USA News. Make sure you're supporting all the Black media in your neck of the woods as well. Check out the map if you want to know who's around you, because we have to support each other and, you know, build our community. So,
and there's more than enough money for everybody, Cheryl.
More than enough. More than enough.
$1.5 trillion in annual disposable income, and sometimes we get to holding on to crumbs.
Yep.
But you can't grab the bigger blessing because you holding on to crumbs.
Agreed.
And we settle because, you know, Cadillac put out a ad that all of y'all can run. And so we like, oh, I'm with Cadillac now. Well, I'm with Hennessy now. I don't need y'all. You know, it's like, come on now.
I agree. I couldn't agree more, Donnie.
All these Black brands that are evolving. I mean, and some news outlets don't have a newspaper. They just have strictly Instagram.
Right.
And they're kicking butt.
No doubt. No doubt. You know.
We got to stop acting goofy.
I agree.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you so much. And thank you for helping empower our community. And don't be surprised if you may get wind of a application for a doctoral program. Have you got doctoral programs up there?
We don't actually.
Well, start one.
We may need to start one. Yeah, we're very practical application type of school. But yeah, that may be something to look at down the road.
Good deal. Cheryl, thank you so much and have a great morning.
Thanks. You do the same.
Okay. Good morning, world.